13 real-life years have passed between the release of Avatar and its sequel, The Way of Water. For the characters, the gap was a little longer, around 14 years. What have they been up to in that time? By the end of Avatar, Jake Sully had joined the Na'vi cause and transferred his consciousness to a Na'vi body. He and his beloved Neytiri have managed to overcome their differences and agree to start a life together.
I see you.
I see you.
They're still together roughly 14 years later, and they've had a few kids. There's their oldest son, Neteyam, middle child Loak, and youngest Tuk. Neteyam and Loak are teenagers who are relatively close in age. They're grown up enough that Jake trusts them to go on missions with him against the Sky People. Tuk is a bit younger, at about 8 years of age during the main events of the film. Jake and Neytiri also have an adopted daughter, Kiri, played by Sigourney Weaver. Weaver appeared in the first film as Dr. Grace Augustine, who died in the conflict between the Na'vi and the humans. Augustine's avatar body, which was rendered brain dead, was pregnant with Kiri at the time. She's about 14 years old in The Way of Water, so her birth most likely occurred shortly after the events of Avatar. The Way of Water dedicates a ton of screen time to these 4 children, and it's clear future sequels are going to develop them even more. At a Way of Water press event, Sam Worthington revealed that director James Cameron gave him a script for a project that's become known as Avatar 1.5 to help him prepare to play Jake again. It was Cameron's original plan for a sequel to Avatar. Worthington explained, part of that story was about them being warriors and taking on the battles of other clans and things like that. As we see in The Way of Water, human military forces have only returned to Pandora within the last year. So in the meantime, Jake and Neytiri have kept busy with Pandora business, with their tribe battling other factions on the planet, getting themselves ready for the return of the Sky People.
What's our plan?
Maybe one day we'll actually see Avatar 1.5 come to fruition on the big screen. Star Wars constantly jumps around in its timeline, after all. It may have taken more than a decade for the military to return to Pandora, but they came back with some new tricks up their sleeves. The most prominent of these is that Colonel Quaritch and some of his compatriots have returned as avatars. Even though they were killed in the first Avatar, their memories have been uploaded to the new bodies. They even came up with a catchy name for the project, which you can see on the Avatar's vests, Project Phoenix. The Phoenix, of course, is the mythological bird who constantly dies and returns to life. Theoretically, what's stopping the military from continuing to upload memories into new bodies, practically making their top operatives immortal? By the time Quaritch and his team arrive on Pandora, the military already has a full base set up and operational. They get introduced to the new way of things this time around, and it's clear their Na'vi bodies will be valuable assets in the hostile landscape. Of course, there's more to be gleaned between the events of Avatar and The Way of Water than what's in the movies themselves. Fans of comic books may know there are various Avatar storylines published by Dark Horse Comics, one of which is the 6-issue series Sutay Path. In the first film, Sutay is a Na'vi warrior who is initially betrothed to Neytiri and wary of trusting an outsider like Jake. However, he finds himself mortally wounded during the events of the film. Anyone who wanted to believe that Sutay was more than just someone competing for Neytiri's braid in Avatar should absolutely check out his comic book series. The event of the comics all take place during Avatar, but they help fill in the gaps to make Sutay a more well-rounded character, up until his untimely demise at the hands of the Sky People. Set shortly after the events of Avatar, the 4-issue Dark Horse Comics series, The Next Shadow, sees the Na'vi attempt to pick up the pieces after most of the human forces leave Pandora.
The aliens went back to their dying world.
Jake, meanwhile, comes to terms with his new life. To really drive this point home, the series starts with Jake going to visit the grave of his human body. It isn't long before some of the natural Na'vi are skeptical of Jake's ability to lead, and some even plot to kill him by challenging him to combat with a poison-laced knife. Jake catches the knife, allowing the poison to enter his system. While he searches for an antidote, he begins having visions of his previous life, including all of the deaths that occurred due to his inaction. It's more of a spiritual journey for Jake than anything else, and he obviously gets the antidote given that he appears in The Way of Water. If you want to be fully caught up with the story of Avatar before The Way of Water, Dark Horse's The High Ground, which is based on a script written by Cameron, is a must-read. It's set just before the events of The Way of Water. Jake, Neytiri, and their family have lived in relative peace for years, but Jake has always been suspicious that the Sky People could return. And that's precisely what happens. Humans bring an armada of ships to occupy Pandora once again. Jake and Neytiri round up as many Na'vi as possible who are willing to fight to protect their home. The story helps fill in the blanks at the beginning of The Way of Water. Even though we see the humans return to Pandora in the movie, it skips past how their presence impacted the Na'vi. The comic offers a better sense of the sacrifices the Na'vi made to protect their home from the colonizers. With the comic, die-hard Avatar fans can get a clearer picture of what transpired in the sci-fi franchise, so you can be ready for The Way of Water and anything else James Cameron has up his sleeves in the planned sequels.